All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today and for joining me for this 15-minute franchisee interview. My name is Jenna Gonzer. I am the development director here at Right at Home and very excited to meet with you today. So let's get started. And why don't you start by introducing yourself, where you're located, the number of territories you own, and when you became a franchise owner?
Well, my name's Bill Love. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. I own two territories, and I've been in the system since November of 2010. So I'm stretching
Woo!
it, and I'm here 15 years.
Yes, congratulations. All right. So, Bill, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background before becoming a right-at-home owner?
Well, and it's a long story, but I'll try to cut it short. So I was in the apparel business. First, I was a merchandise manager for department stores. I then moved to New York City, and I was a GMM of a large apparel manufacturer in kids. And we had brands like Nautica, Calvin Klein, Izod, Dockers, Sean John, et cetera, et cetera. And I was a GMM for that company. I had a new baby. We were living in New York City. Having a new baby in New York City is not an easy thing. So I moved my family to Memphis to be closer to family, my wife's family, and I commuted for 4.5 years back to New York City, back and forth. Left every Sunday, came home every Thursday night. As my daughter began to go into kindergarten, that's when you start to miss things if you're not home for 5 days.
Mhm.
So we began to look for a business to buy or to start. And my wife and I did some demographic studies, and we said, "Wow, if we could do something that's helping with seniors, I think that would be terrific." And we happened upon Right at Home, and we bought an existing business.
Mhm.
Actually, we were the first $1 million or above sale that Right at Home had ever had. So
Congratulations.
yeah, so that was kind of exciting at
Wonderful.
the time. Probably
Yes.
more probably exciting for the buyer as well. I mean, the seller as well as the buyer. But we found Right at Home, and we needed one that was an up and running business to help replace part of my income.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how we got into it, and kind of proud of the fact that I was able to put together a package during the height of the Great Recession, as they call it, and
Hmm.
which we did, and we bought the business, and it's been wonderful ever since.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And what a story. So, in thinking about your years in business, even thinking from the fashion world, first of all, to senior care, what was it that landed you with Right at Home? Why Right at Home?
Well, and it's going to sound a little hokey, but it's true. When I began to talk to um, when I made my validation calls, the people I talked to were just so nice, willing to help, willing to talk to me, willing to tell me what they had going on. And I
Mhm.
still remember this Jeff Welsh out of Detroit, Michigan. He and I are still really good friends, ended up being on
Wow.
the SLC together. We were in the same performance group for a while. He was one of my validation calls, right? So talked to all those people, and they just seemed to be really terrific folks.
Mhm.
Went to Discovery Day in Omaha
Mhm.
and really fell in love with Alan and Brian at the time and all the people that were there, and really thought they were just it's what I still think. I think that overall the franchisor operates with honesty and integrity, and that's really all you can ask of somebody, right? So walked away from Discovery Day thinking that, and then we just made it happen and bought the business.
Wonderful. Well, we're lucky that you made that decision. And, I would have to say validation is a critical part of the education process. And so often we do hear about stories like yours where you've made a call and now they're a good friend of yours to this day. So just a huge value add in being able to reach out to owners and get a balanced perspective in that. So thank you for sharing. And obviously, you've been in business now for a good amount of time. And I think when you think about starting initially and taking over that business, walk us through a typical day when you first took over that business compared to what that day looks like now.
Interesting question. So when I first took over the business, although I had a concept of how this worked and I'd been to training and everything else, you really don't know till your first day on the job, right? And the phone rings and you've got and at the time we had 54 clients and 57 people on the care team, right? So we had a fairly nice sized business.
Mhm.
And you're getting phone calls from the minute you walk in the office until you leave at night, people with questions,
Yeah.
people who may have a complaint, people who may want to give a compliment. It's just a constant because I always tell everybody we're dealing with three different client bases.
Mhm.
If you want to say it that way, we have the actual client,
Mhm.
we have the client's family, we also have the caregiver, right? And the caregiver and the client are together in the home, but you also have the outside part, and you have to deal with all three client bases to make sure everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, everybody's happy with the care they're receiving. And so that was kind of a learning experience for me, is to understand that I had really three customer bases, right? I mean, my care team is a customer base in a way, the client and then the client's family. And the thing that hit me soonest was, and I use this analogy a lot. I used to, I might have to call the divisional merchandise manager at Macy's and tell him I'm going to be late on 150,000 pair of blue jeans for back to school, right? And that was not an easy phone call to make. And they would usually have some choice words and a little bit of sternness in their voice when they were yelling at me. And what I found was it's actually harder to make a call to a 87-year-old gentleman who counts on us to be there every day to take care of his wife who has dementia, right? And when you have to make that call and say, Mr. Smith, I'm really sorry, but Miss Myra is not well today, right? And you can hear the fear and anxiety in their voice of what am I going to do today? That really hit home how important what we do is, and how important it is to the whole family of the people we care for. And of course, the best thing is always when you say, well, Miss Myra's not going to be there, but guess what? I have Miss Betty and she's ready to go, understands the care plan, and she'll be there till Miss Myra, is well and able to come back. So it was kind of the realization that what we do, it's a very intimate and personal business. And it affects a lot of people, and you have to address it that way. You have to be ready to talk with the family and with the client and that type of thing. And it's really, really very important to people's lives.
Absolutely. And really, it is all about those relationships. And like you said, being intimate and knowing that you have to provide a service. And it's really making sure that all the people involved in that service is on the same page. So I appreciate you sharing that. And, and speaking about being a relational business, I'd love for you to just share a story that comes to mind of, maybe a moment that made you really feel good about why you do what you do, or just a moment that really made you feel proud.
How about, I'm going to give you two, if that's
Okay,
okay.
absolutely.
So I bought the company from Bob Hunter and his wife. And the first day, of course, we closed and then went and had lunch, went back to the office. And Bob said, tomorrow, at the time, we only had one private pay client. Everything else was waiver business. So Bob said, I think it's important you meet your private pay client. So next morning, we went out and we met the client. And it was great. Talked to him. And we had been with him for a while. We saw him twice a day, every day. And let's fast forward. That was on a Tuesday. I met the client. On Saturday, I'm at a ballet recital for my now 5-year-old daughter with my mother-in-law, my son, my wife, me, one car. This is before Uber and Lyft. And I'm in Hernando, Mississippi, watching this ballet recital. And I'd already learned, though, that you keep your cell phone on at all times, right? So it's on vibrate. I see it. It's the on-call person on Saturday, and I excuse myself, walk out in the lobby, and everybody had done the right thing. The client I'm talking about only took men for his care, and the caregiver had called out that morning for his late shift that night. We just didn't have any other men, so the staffing coordinator called me, and I said, well, I'll go. I had to find a cab in Hernando, Mississippi to get me back to my house to the car because I had to leave the car for the rest of my family after the recital. So I finally got a cab, got home, drove to the client I'd met on Tuesday.
Wow.
And although I didn't know a whole lot about the actual hands-on care yet, I learned, and he was very good with me. He walked me through how to do everything. Worked with him for about 2 hours, watched a little college football with his dad, right? And then went back and did the reverse process to get him back in bed. And what was so neat about that, he and I became friends. And we cared for him for another 5 years. He and I talked 3 or 4 times a week. I'd go by to see him about once a month, and just really built a terrific relationship. And what was neat about him, he worked 2 days a week on site at St. Jude. We would take him to work at St. Jude. Then we would bring him back home, and then he'd work from home for 3 days a week. And I understood what we do and how it helped him remain a part of the community. Right. And so that really hit home. And my second story is we took care of a woman who passed away 2 months before her 104th birthday. We had been with her for 8 years. I went to the service, to the funeral, didn't get a chance to talk to the daughter who we had worked with for so many years. So I called her about 2 weeks later just to tell her, I thought her mother had looked lovely. And just wanted to thank her for letting us work with her family for about 8 years. And I said, the amazing thing, I went back and looked at our records, and her mother had only been, in that last year of life, had only been to the hospital twice. And was admitted once for one night, and the other time she went to the emergency room, and then she came back home. And I said, isn't it wild that your mother was able to live and die in the home where she was comfortable and surrounded by people who loved her? So that was amazing too, right? And kind of covers the whole gamut of what we do. And hospitals are great places, right? We need them, but there's nothing better than staying at home and even passing surrounded in a comfortable environment with people that love you.
Yes. And that's really at the end of the day what they want, right? To age where they're most comfortable in their homes. And really, I just also take away the fact that you as an owner took initiative to be that caregiver in time of need, to be able to honor that client and their service. And I think it's important that, owners are able to experience all the roles in their business so that you're better equipped to know how to help your staff to be the best that they can be as well. So what fantastic stories. Thank you so much. And, when you think about this business as a whole and joining right at home and really honing in and aligning with our mission to improve the quality of life for those that we serve, what would you say is really, of all the support that we offer, what would you say is most valuable to you?
Well, there's a lot of things that the franchisor provides that are really great for us, but I would tell you that the performance group is the greatest thing that the franchisor ever came up with and has pays for us to do. I'm in a group that was formed in 2012, and I'm still an original member, and there's about 5 of us that are original members. And these people, the one thing I've learned as an owner, you always play to your strengths and forget that you have weaknesses, right? And so this performance group, it's 10 owners who have similar businesses, and they act as your board of directors. And they know me really well now. They've all become tremendous friends of me and my wife. But they don't take any bull from you, right? They'll call you on the stuff, and we open up our books, we show them what's going on, and they help guide and direct us. And that's a wonderful thing, right? That's a wonderful thing, because they may say, Bill, you're spending too much time on sales, and you need to figure out why this is going on in your operations, because you could have an even better business if you could address this. And it's just it's a fabulous thing. I mean, I talk to somebody in my performance group every day, whether it's by text, email, or phone. but we talk constantly, and we socialize outside of right at home. So,
Yeah.
which is a terrific thing. So I would tell you performance groups are the best thing, and it shows in the numbers because if you're in a performance group, you're a higher performing office than if you're not.
hmm So it's just a wonderful way for you to collaborate with like-minded owners who want to excel in their business. And you had a great explanation of our performance group. So thank you for sharing that. And as we come to a close, you've already provided such wonderful insights to being a right-at-home owner. And as prospects come through the education process, it really is a way for them to see the day in the life of an owner through these interviews that we do. So I'd love for you to end this interview with just sharing a tip or a piece of advice, if you will, for a prospect who is currently looking at right at home for ownership.
Well, I'll give a couple again because I like to talk, right? So it's all you get to talk more if you
Okay.
give two. The first thing I would say is you need to know your market, and the best way to know your market
hmm
is to do what I call a comp shop. And you find out what rates people charge for
hmm
care. You find out what they pay a caregiver. And this may mean that you have to go interview for a caregiving job, or you have a friend interview for a caregiving job, because you have to understand as you're going into a business, can I run the business
hmm
charging this amount, paying this amount, and does it give me the margin I need to make this a successful business and a good investment? And
hmm
it sounds simple, but that's really, we do it 4 times a year still. I get a comp shop on both what the pay rates are in Memphis and what the going private pay rate is in Memphis, Tennessee, because it helps to make me a better owner. And then I can make those decisions on where to price and what businesses to go after. So I think that's just very, very important, is to know your market
hmm
and to dig into your market and understand it to the best of your ability. The second thing is, and it's something I did the first, after 2 months, I had an operations manager that came with the business, and he just didn't show up one day and never came back to work,
mm
which happens sometimes, right? And I immersed myself in every single job that there was in the company. Because
mm
when he left, I had to take some things over. And I said, I need to know how everything works, because one, you have more credibility with your office staff if they know
hmm
you can do it too.
hmm
I took on call all the time. I knew how to staff. I knew how to use all of our software, both that was required by either the state here in Tennessee and by the franchisor, all our
hmm
scheduling systems. I knew how to do the books. I knew how to do everything. I did every assessment. I did every sales call. For a year. I did
hmm
everything
hmm
because I wanted to understand it. And then I began to release more things, right? Because
hmm Yeah.
you're running a business. You're not working in the business, right? Which is,
hmm
everybody says it's slightly different. But I found that knowing how everything works made me a much better owner, much, much better owner. So I would say that too. You need to immerse yourself in the business in the
mm
first 6 to 12 months and do everything.
mm
Although I will tell you still, nobody asked me to be their permanent caregiver, which has hurt my feelings a little bit. But you know, I kind of understand it maybe. But really, that's it. Just immerse yourself in the business and understand the market you're in and
hmm
what it takes to be successful in that market from a profitability standpoint.
Wonderful. Fantastic advice, Bill. Thank you so much for those words of wisdom. And thank you so much again for taking time out of your busy day to meet with me today. Your servant leadership, I mean, top notch. Your dedication to your staff, your clients, your community, it's evident. And we at Right at Home are so happy to have you as part of our family. So
Well, glad to belong. I hope I'm here another 15 years.
sounds good to me. Have a
All
great
right.
rest of your day.
You too. Bye
All
bye
right.
now.
Bye bye.